Hi, I'm Ellen Nicole.
And I'm Eileen Nikita, your host.
And welcome to the Instant Caregiver. Before we get started, I'm going to ask you guys to please like that button down there, hit subscribe, and also share with your friends and family. We're also on Instagram at the Instant Caregiver. So thank you. Today, we're going to be talking about elder abuse, neglect. First thing we're going to talk about, of course, is share our story. The second thing we're going to talk about is where to look and how to find abuse. And really, you don't have to look for it. It'll be pretty obvious. And then we're going to tell you what to do. After we tell you what to do, we're going to give you some resources that may be helpful to you if you or someone you know may be in an elder abuse situation.
So it was our birthday. I will never forget this. I was working. Ellen was in the hospital. She got admitted and I was just so weary. And then next thing you know, I get a phone call. And the phone call is from the nursing home. And the nursing home, of course, they was like, oh no, your mom is fine. Your mom is fine. She fell. We cleaned her up. It's just a little bump on her eye. You know, I was like, wow, okay. And the one time that we didn't go because, you know, I'm at the hospital with my sister. And so, and they were like, we're going to take care of her. She's fine. And so I didn't really believe that 100%, but I did kind of trust him a little bit. And I said, well, let me call my brother because I know that my brother wasn't too far from where my mom was. So I called him and I said, yeah, our mom's falling and can you go check on her? And so maybe an hour goes by and he calls and says that it's really bad. Like it is not just a little cut. It is really bad. So, and they were asking, do we want to send her to the hospital? And I said, yes. And I said, but send her to the same place that I'm at now because I could not go to two different hospitals. You know, so they send her to this hospital. And when I saw my mom, I was just so upset, but I couldn't, you know, do anything because she fed off our energy. And if I was really, really hysterical, she would get hysterical. So I just kind of kissed her. And I'm going to tell you, her eye was so swollen and bruised up. It's almost like she had a golf ball in her eye. You know, I had never been so upset. So once I got her situated, you know, I was going my way to the nursing home to talk about it. And I'm gonna tell you, y'all, you know, if you know me, you know that I'm a very calm, non-confrontational type person. But I had a baseball bat in my trunk, and I'm not condoning violence in any way, but I had a baseball bat. I took that bat out because I was going to go talk to somebody. But first I was going to talk and then I was going to start hitting. But anyway, as I was driving there, you know, I did calm myself down. I had to really, really pray because I could not believe how awful it was. And so I get there, and the first thing I do is go into her room because they said that she fell and just hit her head on the wall. So I go in her room. There's no blood on the wall. And no, she's supposed to have a mat that's right next to her bed. And so I looked at the mat and I go, there's nothing there. So I lifted up the mat and it was blood all over the floor underneath the mat. So that mat wasn't there. They just put it there. And of course, my camera was on low battery and I could not take the pictures. And that's one thing, you always have to make sure your phone is fully charged so you can always take pictures at the nursing home. So, you know, that was the beginning of us trying to think about how we were going to get her out, you know, but that was
what happened 2 weeks later after that? 2 weeks after.
2 weeks after that, we get another phone call and said that, oh, your mom hit her head on the dinner table
while she was eating. Something she's never done before.
Ever. And, you know, and it takes a lot for her to put her head all the way down. You know, it was like somebody had to either push her head down or something, but there's no way she could have hit her head on the table. And so we went there, and this time I didn't take my baseball bat. We did something better. We called 911. We called the police. we had the police there meet us because we thought it was elder abuse, because
Which it was.
It was. Of course, the police came, they took a statement, but they would not talk to the police officer in front of us. They went to the back to talk to the police officer, and he came back and was like, his whole demeanor changed. Like, I don't know what they said, but we know that my mother did not hit her head on that table, and we called and we did a report with the state as well. Didn't we, Nicole?
We did. We did many reports with the state, and we're going to talk about going to state and use your ombudsman and all. We did all the things that we were supposed to do. But I would say that last year, nursing home care there had just really deteriorated. I had questions about the kind of staff that they had in there. So yeah, we did all that. And we're going to actually talk about that. So that was like that wasn't even the final straw. We're talking, that's an example of physical abuse. And then what was the final straw was our mom getting aspiration pneumonia. She wasn't fed right, which goes into, we're going to talk about the signs. And like I said, the signs became more and more frequent and more prevalent. So Nikita's going to start with some of the things that you should be looking. And actually, we're talking about nursing home, elder abuse, and neglect, because that's what our personal experience has been.
And of course, it's always easy to see the visual, physical abuse, because they have bruises, and because there was one patient, her sons were out of the country. I think out of the country. And every other week she had a black eye, and we were like, wow, there's no way. Why does she have a black eye? She's not hitting herself in the face. And of course, that's a sign. And then the scars on their legs, you have to check them out. Of course, you can see them physically. Later, you have to start checking like on their arms, where the clothes are covered up. Those are things that people don't realize. And even bed sores, you would never really know they had a bed sore, unless you actually check them as they were cleaning them and stuff like that. That's just one of the things that you have to look for. You want to make sure you check your loved one, and the other people as well. So things you have to look for is the smell. Like her chair smelled horrific. There were times when we couldn't believe it, and we had to tell them they need to clean the chair, not just her, but they needed to clean the chair. And then also there was a time where my mom had scars on her legs. You have to check those things. Those are the physical things that you cannot miss.
Also, some of the things that we noticed, the scars on her legs ended up being wounds. And we'll talk a little bit about neglect and how her scars became wounds because of neglect. Unexplained weight loss. My mom was pretty hefty when she started in the nursing home, and she had a significant amount of weight loss, so much so that we were concerned. And they said they put on her a diet and they wanted her to lose weight for them to lift her, but no one told us that. We would see other residents not being fed during dining time, because sometimes, unfortunately, if they don't have enough staff, they will leave the people sleeping, and they'll miss dinner or they'll miss breakfast. So again, unexplained weight loss, change in behavior. That was one of the main things. And if your loved ones can talk, so you have a little bit better way of seeing what's going on. But our mom was nonverbal. I would say 80% of the time, she really stopped talking. But her nonverbals, when we went to go see her in December, the December that we took her out, my mom was actually whimpering and crying. And I asked the nurse, I said, well, how is she doing? She goes, oh, she's fine. She ate all her breakfast, she ate all her dinner. I said, but she's crying. I said, she never made sounds like that. Like she was really in pain. And I said, no, something isn't right. And my brother had noticed something a couple of days before. So again, change in behavior. Those are all things that you need to look for. And then I also looked at the other residents. If you go regularly and you get to know them and you know their personality, I could tell the ones who were declining and some who weren't just getting what they needed, just by the change in their behavior, the change in how they looked. My mom would get easily agitated with the ones that she didn't like. And I think we talked about that before. Pay attention to how they act around certain people, because the ones that my mom did not like, she did not smile for them. She looked at us and then she looked at them and then she looked at us again. Again, that's a nonverbal cue. Something isn't right. And with one of the workers, we had a sense that something wasn't right. And again, for us, we paid on the days that we couldn't go, and we went more than once a day. We paid someone to look after our mother. And that was a great thing that we did, because she heard her tell my mom, I really don't like you. I can't stand you. And I'm like, why would you say that? That's verbal abuse. Even though my mom could not talk, she understood what she was saying. And we reported that CNA, and she actually was terminated. Again, you just wouldn't expect that from people who are taking, or supposedly supposed to be taking care. And not all CNAs are that way, and not all nurses, but again, you have to be diligent and vigilant in your care if they're in a nursing home.
Yeah, and another thing is we have to check out their roommate, because my mom had a roommate, and the roommate was a whole nother issue, because we had one roommate who, the first one, she was fine, she didn't do anything, but the second one, she always wanted to keep the door closed. Like, she thought that was her little apartment. However, my mom would always get her leg caught in the bed, and it would give her a cut on her leg, and she would be screaming. And so the nurses,
actually, it became an open wound, because our mom would, for some reason, her legs got so small, she would put them through the rails, and the roommate would close the door, and the wounds would get bigger and bigger.
Right, because she would scream, and the roommate closed the door so the nurses couldn't hear her screaming, and that was a big, big concern for us. We kept asking and demanding that either they move her or get another roommate, but because it just got worse, they would bandage it up, but she would still get her legs, they were so tiny, through that rail. And so
yeah. And she was, they moved her from close to a nursing station. She was all the way at the end of the hall, really far. And if the door is closed, you couldn't hear our mom yell. We would hear it, of course, because we would go in and go in her room. So again, you want to kind of think about the roommate. And if you can find out information, find out the roommate's background and where they're from, because you just really don't even know who your loved one's roommate is. And unfortunately, there have been stories of roommate abuse. So just be very diligent
because the family has to come and see them, and you don't know anything about that family. So we made it a point to, when she got a new roommate, to talk to the family member, and she was really nice, that one. And we got to know the family that came to visit, because not just they're visiting your loved one too, because they're in the same room.
Exactly. Another thing is, again, he said pop up at various times. Definitely doing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You want to know who's feeding them, because there have been times, and I don't want to say all nursing homes, we're just going by our own experience.
Right.
But there have been times where we would go visit her eating, and the nurse that's supposed to be feeding her is on the phone. And my mom is just sitting there looking at her food and looking at the nurse. And, again, who's feeding them? You want to make sure that they are getting fed.
That's the number, they say, Nicole, that's the number one concern, is malnourishment for the elderly in nursing homes. I mean, just because someone is, alive and, not like starving, but malnourishment is real, and it could lead to a lot more.
Right. So again, those are things that you don't necessarily think about, but you want to, because that can lead to health complications. So I was going to talk about the difference between abuse. So we're talking about actual abuse versus neglect. Again, neglect, when my mom's door was closed and no one checked on her, and they let the roommate control the door. The door should be open. Again, neglect is when things aren't done that should be done. It's just as dangerous as the actual abuse, because it can lead to health complications for your loved ones. Now we want to talk about the overall facility. Nikita was saying in the beginning, like when we first went to the nursing home, it did not have a smell at all. And we're going to be honest, we were afraid to bring her home, because we thought that smell, which is like an indicator that things are not being cleaned up properly, quickly, when they need to be. And it got to the point where it was just difficult to even walk through the door of the nursing home.
Because I would get so sick because of the smell, and I knew that people were visiting our mom, and I was like, this is unacceptable. And so, of course, I went to the front office, kind of complained about it, and it got better. So to me, that's the sad part. It got better for a little while, but then it went right back to that same smell.
Okay, so if you go to a facility at any time and you have that strong odor, that's a sign. You want to be on the lookout to make sure that everything is clean. I looked at other patients' rooms. I didn't go in, but I would see empty things of water or no water. My mom didn't have any water in her, and it's supposed to be, hydrated.
Right.
In the beginning, when we first did, she always had water. Near the end, there was very little water.
Right.
You want to look at the dining hall?
Right.
Go ahead, Keita.
And I was going to say, in the beginning, there was this one cleaner. Like, I would see him mopping 3 or twice a day. But then as time went on, I noticed he wasn't mopping as much as he used to. So that's something to eye out for.
And then as far as the facility, our mom, her air conditioner / heater or whatever it was, the socket was pulled out. Like it had exposed wire. And we saw that and we told them about it because it was next to her bed. Like it was just little bitty things. Okay, that's a danger. That's a hazard. You want to look at her room. You want to look at the facilities, the smell, and even check out the cleaning. It got to the point where we had to take over the laundry. So the laundry was, for the most part, clean. I didn't have any issues with that, but you still want to check, make sure that their clothes are being cleaned, and that they do a good job with that. And then the last thing that we saw in the end, and sometimes I try not to feel guilty because we did try to move her, but our mom had roaches and bugs in her room. And we turned on the light and you would just see them. And then we tried to get that fixed. But
right. We went to them. We even bought our own, like, those, what do you call those things? Those traps.
Yeah, we brought our own. We did. Yeah,
we put that in there because it was so crazy. They was like, well, we spray whatever, but it's not enough.
Yeah, and our mom was paying close to $6,000 a month for this type of care. And like I said, this is pre-pandemic. I'm not sure honestly, I had a call from a friend who's going through the same thing. So it definitely is an ongoing pressing problem. So those are the things that you should look for versus physical, and then the facility. And we kind of talked about what should you do, okay? And I honestly thought because I was an attorney and they knew that I was an attorney, and I was always, when I tell you I documented and took pictures of every single thing, I thought that would make things, and it did not. So
they kept saying, oh, we like you all. We like that you all own us because it makes us do our job better. And I'm like, you should be doing your job no matter what. Why do we always have to be on you? That's what I kept, saying. Why? This is just normal, what a facility is supposed to be doing.
Right. So the first thing we did, obviously, was call the state. You want to make sure you get your state's number. And I have a list here. It'll be on the podcast slides. But you want to find out who is the state's elder and abuse hotline. There is a hotline. You want to call that. And we called that every chance we got. And I didn't just call that for my mom. There were times when I saw people on the floor for long periods of time and they did not pick them up when I tried to get someone. So if you see it, you want to call. Also an ombudsman, I don't know if people know what that is, but they're state appointed people whose job is to investigate. They're outside the state, because you got the state that you call, but then you also have the ombudsman. Their job is to be an advocate for your loved ones. They gave me some good tips, but the main tip was get her out, but I couldn't do that. So I would say still call them because you have a record of that. What else? Are there any other things?
And once you call them, I would say make sure you follow up, because just because you did that one phone call is not enough. You're still gonna have to follow up to see where they are, and because typically they will come out and investigate.
Right. And then again, talk to the director of nursing and the social worker in the nursing home, but as well about your concerns. Like I had no qualms, no issues with always. And if honestly, I was reporting every day. It seemed like at least once every other week. Yeah. Anything else? So those are like the main things and the resources. I also put a list of elder abuse attorneys on our website and on the slides for the podcast. If you feel that your loved one is being abused or neglected, it does not hurt to talk to an attorney, and they will help guide you in what you need to do for your loved ones.
Right.
Once again, we want to thank you guys for taking the time out of your day to watch our podcast. We'd also like to ask again that you please hit like at the bottom and subscribe. And if you can, share with anybody that you think would benefit from this podcast. We can also be found on the instantcaregiver.com, and we're also on Instagram as the Instant Caregiver. Thank you.
And also join our Facebook group.
Right, the Instant Caregiver.
Bye.
Bye.